Thank you, High Commissioner, for joining this event. Zia, Chandrajit, Sanjeev, all the other friends that I can see on the call, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a delight to see CII in a super active mode. I know it's your 125th year, but I did not know that in the 125th year you're going to have a program every 125 minutes because that's the number of programs I've been doing with CII in the last 6 months. But truly remarkable energy that I see in the entire CII team, secretariat, the leadership. It's both a delight and a very, very redeeming feature of the resilience of Indian trade, business and industry. The confidence that CII has demonstrated during the entire COVID pandemic in terms of India's abilities to revive, in terms of India's ability to overcome this pandemic has truly been remarkable. And my compliments to the entire leadership of CII. As Uday bhai very rightly pointed out, your first virtual conference or engagement on business overseas, particularly with the UK, but I'm sure it would have been very, very productive. Knowing the big agenda that you have covered today, a very, very impressive agenda. You've covered issues which are very relevant, contemporary, important for our relationship with the UK and frankly important for India in the long run, both in our revival effort and in our effort to expand trade with our trusted economic partner, the United Kingdom. We had a very good engagement with the leadership of UK. I'm sure High Commissioner must have appraised you about that. We've had a very good dialogue in terms of considering how we can prepare in the intervening next 4 months before January to see if the engagement with UK can be taken to the next level. I have personally proposed to the UK that we should start engagement on a free trade agreement. It is the need of the hour. India is committed to a free trade agreement with the UK, and I believe it will be good for both Commonwealth countries. I have also strongly urged that while a free trade agreement being very comprehensive in nature normally takes a good amount of time to sort out all the issues on the table, it may be a good idea to pick up 40, 50 items, maybe 40, 50 on each side or both sides, and look at a preferential trade agreement like an early harvest so that we can demonstrate to the whole world the sincerity and seriousness of the UK-India partnership and engagement, and also pick up certain items which are of very serious interest to both countries, where there is good potential for a bump up in the trade. Because very often in the FTAs, you'll have 1,000 lines or maybe 5,000 lines. But ultimately, trade between two countries is usually restricted to 500-700 lines. And I do sincerely believe that the time is opportune and right to have an early harvest between the two countries. I have suggested it to UK. I hope, High Commissioner, you will follow it through. They were a little uncertain about its WTO compliance, but we have got it examined in every respect. It's fully WTO compliant. So we must look at taking it forward expeditiously. I believe there have already been 1 or 2 rounds of virtual bilaterals also with sector-specific teams of UK. I would wish that that process is also speeded up and we take it on a fast-track mode before either Elizabeth comes to India or I'm able to travel and we are able to proceed further to the next level of our dialogue. I also am delighted that CII yourself have had a 4-decade-old partnership with UK. I hope you are also able to work with your counterparts in Britain to get them to implore on their government to see how we can look at a preferential trade agreement to kickstart our process. Please appreciate that any concessions or any liberalization which requires most favored nation status, where I'm required to give a concession to the entire world, is far more difficult than a bilateral agreement between two nations, where you give some, you get some, and you're able to really benefit businesses and create jobs on both sides of the table. So bilaterally, it's always much more simpler. And just to put you the right context, I was hoping that that would have excited the British team. I'd said I'm open to discussing import of Scotch whisky into India also in larger measure. Of course, my intention also in that was not that I drink Scotch whisky in any way, but my intention was that we hear that there's a lot of spurious liquor that comes in the name of Scotch to India. I was hoping we'll be able to put an end to that spurious liquor, get genuine material for those who can afford it and want it, but in the bargain, create a lot of opportunities for our MSMEs, for our farmers, for our dairy, for our fishermen, for our handicrafts, for our textile industry, for our gem and jewelry industry. We have so many industries which have huge potential to work with businesses in the UK, where UK is a net importer in a big way, where India has the competitive and comparative advantage to be able to serve the UK's requirements. I think a small give can give us a large get in favor of India. And I do hope that we are able to take this dialogue forward in a staged manner, but in an expeditious manner. The subjects that you discussed today also are of great relevance. I think the whole world today is looking at de-risking from over-reliance on certain geographies and certain countries, and therefore are looking for much more resilient supply chains. India is being viewed almost across the world as a trusted trade partner, particularly under the leadership of Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. We have been able to earn the goodwill, the friendship and the trust of world leaders and important countries. I think the initiative between Japan, Australia and India towards resilient supply chains, the SCRI, Supply Chain Resilience Initiative, holds good potential for us to take forward with other countries like UK, in Europe, with the US, certain Latin American or African countries. And this trust that we have earned, thanks to the support of all of you from business, I am sure will hold India in good stead, will help us expand our trade and economic interests. I must make a special mention about healthcare. The UK certainly can benefit significantly from India's healthcare offerings, both for healthcare in India and for supporting the healthcare work in UK. I believe a lot of the doctors in their National Health Service are Indians. I also believe there's a huge backlog in planned surgeries and medical interventions in the UK, where India offers a huge potential to give quality medical support at affordable prices and at speed which they will not get in the UK. We are in dialogue with the United Kingdom on that. They have made certain proposals, but I do believe that should be a part of a package of proposals. We should not be looking at one-on-one issues. We should look at a package of 20, 30, 40 issues and create a preferential trade agreement out of such market access or tariff concessions, which will support both economies. India has also demonstrated our own ability to become self-reliant, particularly with the massive ramp-up of our testing facilities, testing kit manufacture, personal protective equipment and N95 masks and all other protective gear manufacture, by the domestic scale-up of ventilators within the country. In a sense, India has demonstrated our ability to respond to a challenge, to a crisis, with a great degree of agility and ability. And I do hope that that will be recognized in the UK, and we can hope to further expand our healthcare engagement, which I believe was the first subject of your in New India UK Economic Partnership in a New World conference today. You have focused on lives, livelihood and growth. Lives certainly take preeminence over every other issue, and I'm glad that healthcare was amongst your priority items. The digital and data challenges before the world are very much there. In fact, India is currently witness to a revelation about how certain countries or companies from certain countries are indulging in a lot of data management, data analytics and number crunching or data crunching, which is not in India's national security interests. I think it's important that the countries around the world recognize the importance of cybersecurity, importance of privacy, particularly privacy of personal data of businesses and individuals. And I'm sure you must have discussed this in your digital and data challenges session. Of course, digitalization or ramp up of digital technologies are also become extremely important in the post-COVID world. India, in fact, has been a beneficiary of the huge investments made in the last 6 years in several such initiatives, including our financial inclusion program, our Digital India program, our Clean India program, our program to take electricity to every home. All of these have held India in good stead during this pandemic. Otherwise, can you imagine an India where people did not have toilets in their home or were still cooking through wood or coal or through traditional chulas, or where they did not have electricity in their home while the lockdown kept us confined to our homes? I think electricity kept us sane. The fact that electricity and water supply was uninterrupted throughout this period, food grains reached every nook and corner of the country, fertilizer was available to farmers at the right time to ensure proper sowing. In fact, our agricultural production is expected to go up this year. All of these are a result of a number of initiatives taken in the last 6 years. We could do VCs in the remotest corners of India because fiber optic has gone to the length and breadth of India now. Railways has Wi-Fi at over 5,500 stations. Nearly 200,000 panchayats already are digitally connected. We have now been given a task by the Honorable Prime Minister to take Wi-Fi to every corner of the country in the next 1,000 days, to take digital optic fiber in the next 1,000 days to every village in the country. I think these are challenges which India has always succeeded in meeting, and I am certain the partnership between government and industry and well-meaning industry associations such as CII will hold us in good stead in making these programs also a grand success. Financial recovery is happening rapidly across the world, as also in India. I can share one or two data points which may be of interest to you. One very critical data point is the increase in freight, the railway travel, the railway carries, which in August had grown by 4% over August 2019. The amount of goods that we carried, August was 4% over August 19. I am delighted to share with you, in the first 13 days of September, the railways has carried 12% more traffic, more goods traffic, freight, compared to the first 13 or 14 days of September in 2019. I think there can be no better measure of the rapid path to recovery that we are witnessing in India than the fact that railways, which is the prime mode of transporting goods, is on stream. On services, I'm happy to share with you, all through the pandemic, our services export were at about 90% of the last year's level. Now, this is a huge thumbs up, and this has added to the credibility of India as a trusted partner world over, because a lot of companies world over had development centers in India, they had back offices in India, they were dependent on systems being operated out of India to run their international show. Not one customer was let down for a single day by our services sector. We had 24-hour control room in the Ministry of Commerce. We had a separate control room in the Department of Industry. We had a separate control room in the Telecom Ministry, IT Ministry, and also obviously in the Home Ministry, the Railway Ministry. And through this collective effort, breaking departmentalism and silos, we were able to resolve any issues on a real-time basis. People moved equipment, people moved to work from home, but ensured that all our international commitments were met. That is the trusted partnership that India offers to the world, which the world has come to recognize, particularly in the last 6 months of the crisis. And I think it's time we leverage on that and aim for the target of $500 billion of services export that I had articulated before NASSCOM in my last engagement with them in Mumbai, and which I believe is eminently doable. Another very interesting data point, I'm sorry, I'm just switching on my phone to give you more specific data so I don't give you anything wrong, but you will be tremendously happy with the data that I'm going to give you. I was actually going to give you the data of the first week export-import, the first week of September, which had shown significant improvement. But I have received a message at 6:05 p.m., which I had not seen. I just opened my colleague's WhatsApp to take out the old message, but I've got the second week's data now. So let me read out to you the second week's data, which is 8th to 14th. The value of export is $6.88 billion US dollars. Up, I repeat, up by 10.73% over the same period of the previous year. Uday bhai, our exports are up 10.73% in the week 8 to 14 September over the same period last year. From $6.21 billion, it's gone up to $6.88 billion. Of course, our export of oil products, oil-related products are a little down in this 7 days. But since oil is largely dependent on imports with a low value add in India, I'm more focused always on the exports other than oil products. And in that export other than oil products, we are still about 10-12% down. So we have a lot of ground to make up on several sectors like textile, gem and jewelry, certain sectors where we have ground to make up. But I think in an overall perspective, the mood is very positive amongst industry. Incidentally, the value of import at $6.6 billion is down 22% in the same period. Last year, same period was $8.49 billion. So effectively, we are a net exporter in the second week of September with a small surplus of about $0.28 billion. And our imports, excluding petroleum products, has also gone down by about 14.5%. So I'm only trying to tell you these data points to tell you and demonstrate that India is in a mood to get back. Our resilience is showing. Our confidence is emerging. Our can-do spirit is reflected in all of these numbers. And I have no doubt in my mind, we will rapidly recover. We will ensure businesses come back on track. We will be able to get economic activity to levels of last year at the first stage and then back to the growth trajectory. We will expand our own role in international supply chains through advanced manufacturing, through quality manufacturing, through manufacturing at scale, for which the committee headed by Pawan Goenka, where Chandrajit, you are a part, FICCI, ASSOCHAM, all of you are playing a very important role. The steering committee for advancing local value addition and employability, SCALE, is doing some fantastic work to expand our manufacturing ecosystem, which we believe will grow by about $300 billion in the next 5 years, both for domestic consumption and for export. Only in 24 sectors that we have picked up so far. Only 24 sectors. So I think we are, all of us collectively, committed to a better future for our nation. We are all collectively committed to faster economic recovery. We are all confident that under Prime Minister Modi's leadership, India will get back to our $5 trillion economy target, albeit a year later, but we stand committed to it. We will make every effort to try and make up for that 1 year also that COVID may have set us back by, and see how India can truly once again gain its rightful place in the International Committee of Nations and global trade, how we can bring prosperity to our people, 1.35 billion people of India who are looking for a better quality of life. And I think that is only possible when we, both in industry and government, work as partners along with our international trading community, international partners in different countries, our missions in different countries. Collectively, let us ensure that we are able to overcome what the world and India have gone through the COVID crisis and leapfrog both the Indo-UK relationship and India's own economic recovery in the next few weeks, months, and at the earliest. I am really confident that with the ever-increasing interests and committed efforts of United Kingdom and India, our commercial and economic partnership will soar to greater heights, and we have a long way to go to meet and achieve our full potential. My best wishes, ladies and gentlemen, to all of you, your near and dear ones, your family. May you all remain safe, healthy, and may the spirits rise. And I mean the spirits of economic well-being and prosperity. No pun intended. Thank you.